Hey, friend, happy holidays. Despite the happy holidays, I'm actually going to be talking about a movie that's really not as happy at all. It's actually it's got a pretty downer ending to it, but I really want to talk about this movie because I think there are a lot of important things to take away from this movie. For those who haven't heard, Don't Look Up came out on Netflix on December 24th, and look, I already would have been excited for this movie if I'd heard the first name alone behind this movie, Adam McKay. For those who don't know, Adam McKay, he directed The Big Short and Vice. Those are the two movies of his that I have seen. I know he's made some other comedies like Step Brothers and Talladega Nights. I'm uncultured. I have not seen Step Brothers, Talladega Nights. I have seen Anchorman. I did see the Anchorman movies. I wasn't a big fan of them, actually, but nonetheless, Adam McKay, I think, has cemented himself as a very accomplished director and someone who has some very strong intentions behind the films that he makes nowadays. The Big Short, of course, was meant to sort of examine really one story from the 2008 financial crisis, how four people shorted the market, the housing market. But then he also did the movie Vice. Vice is a biopic on Dick Cheney and the horrible things that his administration did, especially with regards to the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Both some very thought-provoking movies. Interestingly enough, I actually didn't hear about this movie because of Adam McKay. I didn't even know he was working on this movie. I actually first heard of this movie on a Crystal Kyle and Friends podcast because they were interviewing this independent journalist named David Sirota. David Sirota runs an independent news outlet called the Daily Poster, and this outlet reports on legalized corruption in politics. The big thing for him is following the money in politics. Now, whenever I heard he was behind this, like he was working with Adam McKay on this movie, I was like, oh my gosh, so hyped. I was probably more excited for this than Spider-Man No Way From Home. I didn't even know Spider-Man No Way From Home was coming out until like 2 weeks before it came out, whenever a friend messaged me and was like, hey, you want to go see the movie? And I'm like, oh shit, that movie's coming out? What? Anyways, I was very excited for this movie. And finally it came out on December 24th, and I watched it twice. Yes, it definitely met my expectations. Yeah, the cast alone should make anyone excited to watch this movie. You have an arsenal of star power here, okay? This cast has Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence. I'm trying not to look at the list. Okay, I peeked. Tyler Perry, Cate Blanchett, Mark Rylance, Timothy Chalamet going on a second hand now, Jonah Hill, and this little person named Meryl Streep. Yeah, Meryl Streep is in this movie as well, So automatically you just know that this cast is going to be killer. Even if they have a bad script, you have a good feeling that like they'll do their best with it, I also want to give a shout out to the chemistry between Jonah Hill and Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep plays this corrupt president, and Jonah Hill plays her son, who's also in, part of her cabinet, her administration. So it kind of, clear nepotism right there. And they're kind of trying to do like a whole call to like the whole thing with Trump and his kids and how they were so involved in his administration. Anyways, Jonah Hill, Meryl Streep, great chemistry on screen. A pairing I never would have dreamt would have worked, but damn, it worked. Okay, so I'm going to skip most of the technical stuff involved with this movie just because I don't think it has a lot to do with the intentions of this video. So in regards to all the technical stuff involved in this film, like, cinematography, audio, editing, that sort of thing, it's good. It's good. More than acceptable. You're not going to be watching this movie thinking, oh my gosh, like this movie just looks ugly. Some people in the reviews have said that they didn't like some of the cinematography. They felt like some of the shots were a little bit too distracting whenever it would cut to like maybe different areas of the room. I kind of disagree with that. I didn't think it was that distracting. And I kind of liked how they sort of built the, how those extra shots kind of built the environment that all the characters were inhabiting. But anyways, that's more than I wanted to say on the tech stuff. So I'm just going to awkwardly move on from that. Really what I want to get into is the story. And yes, I'm going to give a big spoiler alert because I will be, talking about some major plot events. So if you don't want it spoiled, go watch the movie and then come back here, okay? Okay, cool. So yeah, some fluff could have been cut out. The affair with Cate Blanchett's character, which I forget her name, but the affair with Cate Blanchett's character and Leonardo DiCaprio's character, Dr. Mindy, seemed a little bit forced. It kind of came out of nowhere. You didn't really understand. I mean, yes, we can understand that like Dr. Mindy was like attracted to this talk show host, but it didn't make a lot of sense for him given that he's had such a strong relationship with his wife. We don't really get the sense of like, we don't really get a strong force that's like attracting him to Cate Blanchett's character. Oh, Bree's her name. Bree. Like, I think the most reasoning that we really get for his decision to have this affair with Cate Blanchett's character, Bree, is, hey, pretty talk show host. Ooh, ah. So yeah, some fluff could have been cut out. This is a 2-hour, 20-minute movie. There could have been some stuff that was cut out of it. But look, I just love the fact that this story exists. The movie follows a professor and a grad student's attempts to alert the world about an incoming comet. Now, in today's world, the writers argue, this is a lot easier said than done, thanks to incompetent and corrupt leaders, both within the government, like Jonah Hill and Meryl Streep's characters, and within the private sector with Mark Rylance's character, Peter Isherwell. I think it's Ishwell or Isherwell? Let me check. Isherwell. Peter Isherwell. Okay, cool. And as one would expect, McKay's comedy background shines here. It underlies his exploration of these heavy themes with a grim chuckle. Two scenes really come to mind. The first one was the one that's been heavily marketed in a lot of trailers. It's the scene where they're initially informing the presidential administration about this comet that's coming. And despite the president and her staffers being told, there's 100% chance this comet is going to hit Earth in like 6 months. You need to do something about it ASAP. The response is, we need to sit tight and assess. So anyways, example of a great scene. Another great example too would be the post-credit scene. I know I said spoiler alert, but I don't even want to get into explaining just why that post-credit scene is hilarious. I highly, highly recommend you sit through, like, I don't even think it's like kind of like an in the middle credit scene. It's sort of like halfway through the credits, they decide to stop them and splice this final scene in. The humor is excellent, and I don't think anyone was expecting otherwise. But what I'd say is most notable about this film is its willingness to fiercely call out two major forces that perpetuate our climate crisis. The first one being incompetent and ineffective government, also corrupt government. And the second one would be a network of media outlets that fail to adequately inform its readers. And because we don't get a lot of pieces of entertainment that are willing to call out the kinds of forces that Don't Look Up fiercely calls out, I think as viewers of this movie, we need to be willing to also have that discussion about, okay, we've seen this movie. We've seen that it has some despite it being a funny and entertaining movie, of course, we also need to start talking now about the things that we can do as individuals, as individual citizens. What can we do to stop the forces that are destroying our planet? And even going beyond climate change, it's just what can we do to... What can we as individual citizens do to ensure that we are doing everything we can to fight against the blatant corruption happening in our political system? So I thought of 4 ways in which we can, at least on an individual level, address the problems that Don't Look Up is shining a light on. So I would say the best thing that we can do as individual citizens is simply start following the money. Alrighty, whenever it's time to vote for someone, you can go to a website called opensecrets.org. You can type in a candidate's name and you can see what companies are funding their campaigns. That's a big, important tool, and I think we all need to start taking advantage of that. And as you'll see, of course, remember, you go on to opensecrets.org. it's not just the fossil fuel industry that's that's doing all this corruption stuff. It's not just the fossil fuel industry. It's also big tech. I'm sure alcohol companies, especially in regards to trying to prevent cannabis from being legalized, because guess what? Cannabis is probably going to cut into their sales if you legalize it. You've also got pharmaceutical industries as well. I mean, who is it? Kirsten Sinema took $920,000 from Big Pharma and then changed her mind on the policy from the Build Back Better plan that would have allowed the government to negotiate for lower drug prices. She turned on that policy as soon as she took $920,000. Whoopsies. But anyways, I'm going on a ramble there. The point is, we need to start voting for grassroots funded politicians. And if you can, even donate to grassroots campaigns. Now, for my Arkansas friends, I'm sure I've talked to you about it before. I interviewed Dan Whitfield in July on KUHS LP 102.5 FM in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Anyways, he's running a grassroots funded campaign for U.S. Senate. He's running for a spot in the U.S. Senate in 2022. Yeah, this year. Now, I'll just run through like the top 3 things for me that are just really big. He supports universal health care with his Healthcare for All plan. It's technically not Medicare for All. It's like a different version of that. But anyways, he does support universal health care. He supports decriminalizing weed on a federal level. And he also supports eliminating the tax loopholes that allow for billionaires ridiculous gains in wealth. So for my Missouri friends, Lucas Kunce is a grassroots funded politician who's running a campaign for U.S. Senate as well in 2022. Saw him on a Breaking Points interview. I'll put a link in the video, I think, if you want to go check that out. He's a big advocate for breaking up monopolies on the tech, agricultural, pharmaceutical, and other industries. He also supports legalizing weed, which I did want to point that out too. Dan Whitfield is actually for federally decriminalizing weed and wants to leave it up to the states to legalize it. Lucas Kunce wants to legalize weed, just flat out legalize it. Also, Lucas Kunce supports outlawing war profiteering, which, yeah, that makes totally based. Another thing that individual citizens can do is simply support independent media. Now, I've written and talked a good deal about the importance of independent media before, so I may sound like a broken record here. The movie does a good job of exploring how corporate money corrupts politicians, but it doesn't make the source of incompetence within corporate media very clear. The forces that fund these outlets are corporations, so there's a financial incentive for all of these outlets to only report on the news that serves the interests of their advertisers, not the interests of their content consumers. They can't be totally ignored, as they have resources and connections to report on some of the biggest events that happen in our culture. But that being said, independent media, for all of its faults, provides important information that won't be shared in mainstream media outlets. You just won't find it there. So for a good starting point, I'd go check out Breaking Points on YouTube. You can also find it on just about every podcast platform. It features a populist right host. His name is Sagar and Yeti, and a populist left host. Her name is Crystal Ball. And they have, I would say, I think even they've said they tend to agree on about 70% of the issues. Also, More Perfect Union. It's a YouTube channel started by the campaign manager of the Bernie Sanders 2020 presidential campaign. The outlet mainly focuses on workers' unionizing efforts, but it also does cover legalized corruption as well. Now, a third thing we can do, and I admit this is a small thing, try to go green. Now, look, who the hell knows how much of an effect individual choices have on the environment, but if you're as concerned as I am about this climate crisis, and if you find that trying to live a less wasteful life is more comfortable to you, then hey, by all means, go for it. Little things can make a difference. And finally, whatever you do not shut up about this. That was 5. I was counting like that was 5, or it's actually 6 words, but you get the point. Do not shut up about this. Share accurate information on social media. Talk with friends and family. Even do something like sitting down with a few friends to show them this movie is an easy way to do that. Hell, if you're feeling brave, show this movie to people who you think will disagree with the message. This movie manages to explore a heavy topic in a fairly comfortable way, so even if the movie fails to change some minds, I can guarantee you that there will at least be some laughs shared along the way. And you at least, got to try to get someone to think in a different way, and you also try to get people to start caring, about this world that's slowly but surely being mined to death by corporate overlords. So, yay. Anyways, I think I'm gonna leave it at that, friends. Yeah. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, well, guess what? YouTube hit the dislike button, so I really don't care if you hit the dislike button. But if you want to, go for it. Also, yeah, feel free to leave comments, share the video if you like what I have to say. If not, sorry, this is my first video. I'm trying my best. Anyways, have a good one, friend.